Can I remake every single townie in The Sims 4 in my own style? That is a challenge that I gave myself pretty much once the pandemic started, and I realized I had an awful lot of time on my hands. However, I am still going to this day because it turns out I'm actually a little bit of a perfectionist, and doing townie makeovers has actually made me care about the townies way more than I ever did within The Sims 4. And I realized I haven't yapped your ears off enough about them recently. So this is, of course, a follow-on, a continuation of my series where I'm going to be talking you through all of my townie makeovers, the headcanons that I have for these Sims. And today we are going to go all the way from Mount Komorebi through to San Sequoia. So quite a lot of families included in this one, which is fun. I don't know. I feel like spanning age ranges and like playing around with all of that and like getting out their individual styles and kind of also thinking about like family dynamics, how they interact with each other, making the kids look like their parents but not too much. It's fun. Starting off with one of the families that I know is a firm fan favorite. So many of you love the Ito household, specifically Kiyoshi. I feel like the Sims community really just took that boy under their wings. I personally love Megumi. I actually love the dynamic that I've come up with in this household. I'm fairly sure it's actually pretty accurate to their lore, but I haven't gone back and like read through their bios and descriptions and stuff like that. However, Naoki, in my opinion, is like a failed professional skier. So he got injured quite early on into his career. He now works in business instead. So really all that matters to him is making money, whereas Megumi is actually a professional skier. I feel like their kids are more into snowboarding, which Naoki is really not impressed by, considering he doesn't actually like snowboarders. Yes, I was a Johnny Copperhala fan. How did you know? So I always firmly believe in the beef between skiers and snowboarders. I don't know if that is like actually accurate, but I did grow up like going to skate parks, and there was definite beef between skateboarders and kids on scooters. So I definitely feel like that maybe takes itself to the mountains as well. Kiyoshi and Nanami, I imagine, are both big into snowboarding. Nanami actually a little bit more, just because she loves annoying her family members. She is like mischief queen. She's actually the one in this household where I've completed all of her outfits, which isn't surprising. I actually did a whole video called Do This Whilst You're Waiting for Growing Together, where I really focused on the children of The Sims 4, because I knew that obviously in my Growing Together Let's Play, I was going to have like households interact with households, and they were going to be going to school, they were going to have sleepovers, so I knew that I wanted the kids to pretty much be like fully kitted out and have like every single outfit done, which is why so many of the children in my save file are fully complete, whereas the rest of their family are just like trailing along. And I can definitely see her getting kind of into the family business that Naoki runs. However, she's gonna get more into like the hacking side of things, which I'm really excited for. Surprisingly, not going straight over to Kaoru's family, we're gonna focus on the Akiyama household next, and I love this family. I think it's super interesting, kind of the like past relationship that Kato had with Megumi. I don't actually think that he is like actively cheating on Jenna, and genuinely, why would he? He knows that he has a good thing going on at home, especially in my townie makeover version of Jenna, who of course we will get into. But yeah, Kato, you know, snowboarder, he used to be in a relationship with Megumi, but I feel like they've both kind of grown up from that. I do kind of feel as if Megumi still has like a little crush on Kato, and definitely like in the back of her mind is always like, oh, will we, won't we? Whereas Kato is like firmly settled, and his kids are so cool. He knows that Megumi like probably realistically isn't gonna leave Naoki, even though he's really not the nicest man. I actually genuinely have beef with Naoki. I know he's just made up of pixels, and I probably shouldn't have that much like emotion tied to a bunch of pixels, but these townie makeovers, they pull me in. I start caring about them, and then I'm sorry, but if you're a bad person, then yeah, I'm not gonna like you. And I don't like the way that he speaks to a lot of people. Whereas Kato, on the other hand, is just like golden retriever. He's like a pretty young dad, very, very active, like pretty much just like encourages his kids to be interested and do what they love, rather than forcing them into the family business like somebody I know who lives nearby. Jenna is my queen. As soon as I saw the vision with her, I was like, oh my god, I absolutely have to go with this. And the best way that I can describe Jenna is she is a girly who has grown up on Paramore. She is a girly who is like idolized Hayley Williams and therefore no flaws whatsoever. Hayley Williams is perfect. Jenna is also perfect. I really am a fan of like how I switched her up completely. I kind of made her an elder emo. I just feel like as a millennial, I can speak to the elder emos. I myself, although like looks wise, I guess, and like fashion wise, I never really did like the whole scene emo thing. Of course, I had a very heavy side swooped. It wasn't even a fringe. I'm not even gonna claim that it was a fringe. I mean, I went to so many gigs in Manchester like between the ages of 13 and 18, and that was such like a pivotal moment, and most of it was like emo alternative music, and I flippin' loved it. I stan Jenna. And then the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree because their kids are also super freaking cool. So we have Taku and then his sister, whose name is evading me right now, but these two are twins in my opinion. He's kind of the more creative one. He's super into photography and he really wants to be a nature photographer when he's older. Obviously, they both are into snowboarding as well. They like going on excursions and hikes, and he is more so like in his own little world. You know, he's very introspective. He kind of keeps to himself and he just wants to be at one with nature and like show people his love of nature and animals and all of that through his photography, whereas his twin sister is way more of like the sporty tomboy. And coming from a former tomboy, actually I can't even claim to be a former tomboy. I am still heavily a tomboy, but Miki is actually more of like the super athletic one, like very outdoorsy. She wants to climb Mount Komorebi when she's older. She's definitely into like the extreme sports side of things. She's an adrenaline junkie. She's a goofball. She's very extroverted in comparison to her brother. A little bit of a loudmouth, less clown type of kid, but I absolutely love that. I mean, they're both just very cool people. I don't actually know what I see her doing in the future. Honestly, she's probably just gonna become like a snowboarding instructor. I mean, I wish that were an actual career that we could have in the game, or at least like a professional skier or snowboarder. You know, any form of like a way to make money from skiing or snowboarding would have been great in Snowy Escape. But this video is not about my hatred and lack of features in Snowy Escape that could have personally made it a much better pack for me. It's about the families that reside there. And the last family that do reside there are the Nishidake household. Obviously, this is where Kaori is. She lives with her grandparents. I'm sorry, but I feel like I made Shigeru so cool. I kind of wanted them to kind of be inspired, not only by their grandchild, but also just kind of like the fashion that you see around Mount Komorebi. I wanted a little bit of like Inshin arrivals in there as well. And I honestly, I said all of that and I said it so confidently, and then I forgot that when I made over these townies, I obviously do a lot of my townie makeovers over on Twitch, twitch.tv/EnglishSimmer if you aren't following over there. If you want to watch like the actual process of me actually making over these townies, that's usually where you can find it. He has the sperm liner on. I am so sorry. Chat bullied me into it. I'm fairly sure he like randomized with it on, and then chat were just like, no, you have to keep it on him. So I went ahead and did that, and I feel like Kaori just kind of did it like unknowingly on him, and she's like, yeah, this is what everyone's wearing at the moment. And obviously, because he's that little bit older, he didn't know, he didn't even think to question it, and he definitely didn't connect the dots. But his wife definitely has a giggle over it every single time she sees it. And then Kaori is actually a pretty like colorful person. I feel like even from the outfits that she's wearing originally within the game. So I kind of just wanted to, again, make her like pretty fashionable, but more in like, I guess, more of a tomboy way than she initially was. I think she just looks like so cool all of the time, like an extremely laid back kind of sim. I genuinely love the fact that we got those little star spot stickers, and I have put them on so many teens because I just imagine them like sat on Discord, her and Kiyoshi just like staying up all night playing video games together, and she's just got those little like stickers on her face. She knows that he doesn't really care about the way that she looks or like wearing makeup and stuff like that, and I really ship them together. This is me calling you out if you break them up. Whilst we move on to Henford on Bagley, this is where I'm gonna get proper English. I feel like I actually did a pretty good job of making these sims kind of just look like people who would like reside over here in the countryside. So the backstory between these two, Ian is actually a actor. He very much like lived in London most of his life, very eccentric, very extroverted, very, you know, like, oh, look at me. And then Derek is actually a playwright, and they work together, and then they also like fell in love with each other. But Derek is a lot more reserved. He's like a lot more like, I want to move to the countryside and like continue writing and, you know, continue being a playwright and writing stories and all of this, but I want a much quieter life. I just moved to London obviously because I knew that there were going to be career opportunities. Did always want to retire in Henford on Bagley, and Ian obviously extremely in love with his husband, was like, absolutely, like, we can do that, like, I'm still gonna act. But now I feel like he does like local acting like classes for all the children. I need to build like a community center or something in Henford on Bagley because I feel like it's missing it. There's not even a library, which usually I feel like I'm so against libraries in Sims 4 Worlds, but it made sense in Henford on Bagley. Is that just me? Cecilia, aka the WLW dream. We all know that so many Woolowoos dream of just like quitting their big city job and moving to a farm or like a plot of land or a little cottage in the countryside of the UK, and that's exactly what Cecilia did. So obviously part of her lore is the fact that the creature keeper actually has like a massive crush on her and is like always asking her out on dates and stuff, and she's kind of always turning him down. I don't know how the rest of you perceive that. Maybe you're just like, no, she doesn't have interest in the creature keeper, which honestly is kind of surprising considering she wants to be like a country caretaker and like obviously loves animals. I imagine her like being the Snow White of Henford on Bagley. Like, she opens up the windows, she starts singing like Princess Fiona, and all these birds just like gather on her windowsill, and like the squirrels help her clean up the house and stuff like that. But in my mind, she is actually a lesbian, and that is the reason that she keeps denying the creature keeper. It's just that, you know, she's moved to a brand new place. She kind of doesn't want to like out herself straight away. She kind of wants people to like form their own opinions on her, because at the end of the day, like, her sexuality and her relationship, she's just like, that is the least interesting thing about me. I actually haven't created anyone for her to romance, but I feel like I need to, because she truly does deserve to be treated like the queen that she is, and not just from the animals. Never thought I would say these words, but I kind of popped off with Thomas Watson. Again, I just think I did a really good job of making these Sims feel like realistic to people that I see like out and about in the UK. Thomas, I've never honestly really had that much of an interest in. Do I really like the way that he looks? Yes. He just looks like a farmer dad. I don't know what else you expect from me. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't now cheat on this man. Not that cheating is ever acceptable, and nor should it have been done in like the first place. But you know, I feel like, well, I was gonna say I feel like they've moved over that in their relationship, but actually I don't know if the Watson household actually have moved on from Rahmi's cheating scandal. I also can't remember if it's confirmed that it was like a cheating scandal or if it was just before maybe she met Thomas and like settled down, but I highly doubt that that is the case, considering they have like a teenage daughter and the mayor also has a teenage son. I just feel like that happening before they like had kids is probably not accurate, so I want to call it a cheating scandal. But Rahmi is a little cutie. Honestly, her genes absolutely won in this relationship. The kids are like the spitting image of her. Her eyes are just like so stunning, and I love the like shorter hair on her. I think she is so cute. I think she's a pretty like happy-go-lucky sim, so I kind of just went with like very relaxed clothes on her, but I do feel like I need to dive a little bit deeper like into her character and maybe come up with like some actual like consistent personality traits, whereas her daughter Myra has maybe a little bit too many strong personality traits. First off, I just want to talk about her hair. I think it's so stinking cute. It is one of my favorite pieces of like custom content I've ever downloaded. Like just the fact that it looks like she's done her hair herself. I think we need more of that, and we should have had more of that within the game when it comes to children's hairstyles. I know that now they just kind of size down adult hairs to make them work on children, and whilst I like that in the end that means that kids get more access to hairs, I do wish that they still had like hairs that actually felt like, you know, personal to them and actually look like children's hairstyles. But Myra is a rambunctious scamp. She loves being outdoors. I said it in the kids makeover video, but I imagine her like going out catching fish, you know, always wanting to go camping and stuff like that, and then she chases Imran around with these fish because he is a little bit more like squirmed out by that kind of stuff and doesn't like fishing, doesn't like really seeing animals in pain. He is again like on the quieter side. I now like how I made all of the boys like kind of a little bit more reserved, a little bit more shy, but he just really loves like video games. Whilst he is creative, he is a farming simulator main. He outgrew Stardew Valley, all of those farming life simulations, and now he's just like, I want to like create the best farm possible. I want to look after all of the animals. A lot of them are also like really big animal lovers and like are working towards like conservation or nature photography, etc. I can't decide if I want him to be like a vet eventually, or maybe just like take over on the farm but be more of like a caretaker rather than like making money like from profit of plants, etc. I love the juxtaposition of the twins that we've talked about so far, and unfortunately I haven't worked on the teen yet. Sara and Simon are actually two of my most recent townie makeovers. I do find it interesting when I make these videos. You can kind of see like who I worked on originally, like when I first started this, because I feel like I used a lot more custom content back in the day. Obviously, like the more packs we have gotten over the years, the more the catalog has opened and the more like outfits and clothing items we've actually received that I actually really like. I've said it from the get-go, but I feel like Discover University, they really found their groove with Creator Sim, and don't get me wrong, there are still like this bodysuit from Trelike that Sara is wearing. I definitely think there's still stuff that I have custom content wise that I just know the packs will probably like never ever touch. Especially now because I'm not really buying new packs and I don't want to purchase new packs right now and in the future, but I do think that obviously Create Sim from that point like really took a turn in the right direction. So Sara was the one who wanted to move to Henford-on-Bagley, and then Simon, I kind of made him this like little hipster indie guy. I imagine him being a little bit of like a coffee snob. I imagine he is like a programmer, but the freelance programmer, I imagine him doing like that as his career. Like that is what he does to make money. So he can kind of work remotely. Like every so often he'll go back into the city for like meeting up with his friends or just wanting to spend a day there and like for his job and stuff like that. But he is the one who like followed Sara, and she now obviously is a bartender. I like to think that they own the pub, and he kind of wants to like settle down and like start having kids, but I feel like she's very much like, no, I need to focus on the pub first. Like I need to get this like established, and I need this business to be running perfectly. Like we need a consistent income. Even though he feels like his income is pretty consistent, she also wants to prove to herself that, you know, the move wasn't a wasted opportunity. She didn't just drag him away from his life to have that fall through. And so I do think there is a little bit of tension in their marriage. Who knew? Running away to the countryside doesn't fix everything. But you know what, Rahmi? I get it. I support women's rights and wrongs, because when I look at Lavinia, I usually say Lavinia because I grew up knowing a woman named Lavinia, and like that is always what I want to call her. But she is absolutely stunning. I love a bad bitch, and she just being like the mayor of Henford-on-Bagley is so good. She is a powerful lady. I absolutely wanted to stick with like kind of the formal, kind of more reserved fashion for her. I obviously did want to keep her like mayoral outfit on, because when she does attend like the festivals or anything like that, you know, if you're not playing your save file for too long where she actually just manages to become replaced by someone else, I still wanted her to like wear that outfit, but I would always add like a second outfit over that. And I've done that for quite a lot of like the cottage living sims. So for the creature keeper, and also for Kim, who owns one of the stores, I absolutely love her like comfy cozy but also like really professional vibe that she has. And not many sims can pull off the cat eye glasses, and she absolutely can. They look so good on her. The same goes for Rahul. Obviously he's a teenager, and he kind of works as the delivery person when you order like shopping online on your phone. He will usually turn up with that bag and be like, hey. So I still wanted to keep kind of the like shop outfit on him, but I did want to also inject some like actual personality into him. He is quite sporty, he enjoys working out, but I feel like that's a little bit more like what he puts out into the world. That's kind of like his rising sign, whereas in reality I think he wants to be like a nerd brain, or maybe like a renaissance sim. I can't remember what that icon actually means, but I do think he is actually like super clever and a little bit nerdy. Like he has a lot of fun facts, probably about like fruit and vegetables that he's learned from like working in the greengrocers, but he doesn't really like to show them off all that often. I feel like you really have to get to know Rahul to kind of see that side of him, because on the surface he kind of just looks like a regular teenage guy who like enjoys playing football and hanging out in the park with his mates. Justice for the creature keeper. I feel like so many people called him the creature creeper, and I've always felt sorry for the man. Maybe it is because he is a little bit pushy with Cecilia. I do think his like intentions are well-meaning. I think he just like likes her, and I feel like maybe people don't give him a chance very often. They're just like, who's that widow at the edge of the map who like lives in his little hidey hole and doesn't really interact with anyone except like his cow, and they kind of write him off. I feel like Lavinia probably talks to him because she likes being mayor and like chatting to all of like her constituents. But then I feel like when she moved, Cecilia kind of didn't have like any preconceived notions about him, so like actually just started talking to him like a regular human. And then he was like, wow, this is the first time I've spoken to someone outside of my cows in like months. I like this person. He basically imprinted on her because she gave him the time of day. But I do think he gets done dirty. I think that he's actually just really a sweetheart, and I think he would be really supportive, actually. Kim Goldblum, again, another sim that I have done extremely recently, so I obviously have a lot of facts about her just kind of sitting in my brain. But as I was making her over, I clocked that she actually looked a little bit like boring coworker off TikTok. So I, of course, decided to run with that. We definitely decided that Kim Goldblum, probably out of most of my townies, apart from Sophia Bjergsen, probably the biggest Swiftie that there is, which means she also has a cat called Meredith Grey. Yes, she is one of those Swifties who also named her cat after a Grey's Anatomy character. I just feel like she is the epitome of like boring coworker, like the least problematic person you could ever possibly imagine. And I absolutely love her style. She's very like laid back, but in like a very bold and also like fascinating way. Like she wears a lot of like bold colors. She always has Taylor's statement red lipstick on, and she was just so much fun to give outfits to, because I feel like I don't really go for that vibe very often. I don't do kind of like the basics but in bold, and it was really fun to play around with. Cry my eyes violet. I haven't decided if Greta actually does have violet eyes or if they are just contacts, but I think either works. Like either way, this is my, I always want to call her Violet, even though I know that that's not her name, Abigail from Stardew Valley. So Greta, obviously we've moved on to my wedding stories now, and Tartosa. I flippin' love Greta. That's my little bi baby. She spawned in with the bisexual nails, and I was like, that is canon. One of her biggest influences is obviously Cam and Dom. Hello. If I lived in the same world as Cam and Dom, I would also be obsessed with them. However, I do also feel like is pretty inspired by Faz, and obviously her like parents own a wedding business anyway. I feel like she kind of aspires to be a florist. Then we have Hector. Now, I imagine that this is like his family's like generational thing. Like they've been doing weddings for like a very, very long time, and the business has kind of just been like passed down through the generations. I don't know if that's actually correct. I think it is. I think he is related to Arnessa. I think Arnessa is his mum, and I imagine she is like the retired, like very much, I'm gonna keep this in business and I'm gonna live out of spite to make sure that you don't mess up our business, even though there is a new wedding planners on the block. I basically just wanted to turn him into a man who deserved the absolute goddess that is Hillary. Now, Hillary was actually a sim that I stole from Hector. Sorry, Hector. Before I gave you the townie makeover, though, let's be real, I really just up and stole your wife there for my 9 Legacy challenge. So she was kind of the matriarch of that whole thing. And from that moment, I have thought Hillary is like such an icon. I love her style. She kind of gives me Ekansu vibes. I don't know if I'm the only one, but she has her own business. Obviously, she's like in ties with her husband of like throwing weddings and like wedding planners and stuff, but he handles that side. She is a baker, so she is the one who is making the wedding cakes, and I freaking love her. She's such a stylish sim. Like genuinely, my heart does a little pitter patter whenever I see her. I love how I also go to that snowy escape jumper anytime I'm like, I need a woman who looks like she has her shit together. It's that jumper right there that does it for me. I didn't even know if I was gonna include Cam and Dom. I'll be so real. Every time I look at Cam, I'm like, is this who I want you to be? Like, I really, really like her outfits. Again, this was in the time period where I was using like a little bit more custom content than I use nowadays. So I think sometimes I'm like, if I just change a couple of like CC outfits, or maybe just use something that doesn't Seline like quite as alpha and is like way more Maxis match. There's just something about her where I'm like, I'm not 100% happy with the way that she looks. And I really love how colorful she is. I definitely like think she fits in so well in like Tartosa. She's fun. She's got like that young, lively spirit, and her clothes definitely give off that vibe. I think I'm predominantly just not like happy with her hair. I genuinely think if I changed her hair, I'd be like, yeah, that's the Cam I have actually always envisioned. Also, the fact that they wear like matching oranges is so flippin' cute. Yes, also out here looking like the lesbian flag, but also just like matching with your wife. Dom is obviously the artist. She is super colorful again, and I just love how young in spirit they are. Like, they've practically like adopted Greta. They're like, yeah, we will take you under our wing. You can be our little protege. As obviously being the current florist that we have in Tartosa, he's got his little like florist trailer, I guess you would say, his little stall where he sells all of his bouquets and stuff. He wears an awful lot of pink. I knew I wanted to have fun when it came to his fashion, and I knew that him liking pink, like I'm fairly sure even his stall is pink. He likes to do like a lot of like pink and purple bouquets. He just loves romance. He loves talking to people and getting to know their stories. I feel like he's like traveled around and like did so much traveling and like partying when he was that little bit younger, but then when he finally landed in Tartosa, he was like, oh my god, like the gravitational pull that I feel towards this place, and now he doesn't take it for like granted at all. He lives every second like in the moment, just kind of breathing in the sea air. Like, this is exactly where I'm meant to be. I have found my people in like Cam and Dom, and also Greta. They are the found family of Tartosa for sure. Moving on to one of my favorite packs ever for townies. Of course, we've got the werewolves. We are starting off with Sumi, but probably the least interesting werewolf in this pack. I'm so sorry, Christopher, but you're like just a little bit boring sometime, and like that's okay. You're allowed to be a little bit boring, you know? You're just this like nice hippie guy who like is loving everyone, apart from Rory, who you practically kicked out for going against your beliefs. So I don't know if I'm buying it, but you know, this is Christopher. I kind of wanted him like just wearing very natural like fibers, not a dressed up kind of guy at all, like very, very laid back, does not care what he looks like really. Then we have Jacob, who definitely puts the effort in. I just kind of wanted to make Jacob this like very artsy, having a little sketch pad and really just like enjoying going out and like sketching all kinds of things on his adventures as a teen wolf. Not the Tyler Posey teen wolf, but the Jacob Volkov version. Do you reckon they just chose his name because of Jacob from Twilight? I feel as if the Twihard was definitely behind that decision, but they're definitely very laid back. I also feel like they actually thrift a lot of their clothes, which does make sense as a werewolf, you know? You are constantly rampaging, you are constantly like ripping your clothes, so it would make sense that they were secondhand, and they do very much still care about the environment. Obviously, they've been raised by the collective and Christopher and Lily, so it would make sense that a lot of their clothes either feel handmade from probably Lily with like crocheting and knitting, or actually found from different vintage shops around. And then finally, we have my baby, probably my personal favorite out of this household. We have Lily. I mean, there's not really much I can say about like their fashion. It's just very, you know, like scrapped together. Like, they just want to stay warm, they just want to be cozy, they want to be comfortable, but without like obviously polluting the world a little bit more because they all are part of the collective. I just feel like Lily has the kindest eyes. I feel like she is just the type of person that would fully protect you. Like, you join the collective, she's gonna make homemade meals for you, she's gonna make sure you're growing big and strong. You get into any fights, she then is like the protector and will fight back. Whereas Christopher will be like, no, we don't fight, we're all about like peace and love, and you know, we can't be caught doing that. She is gonna absolutely mess someone up if they come for Jacob. Wolfgang, the little librarian, absolutely adore Wolfgang. Very much keeps to themselves, is like, books are my most important and like prize possession, and is still part of the collective, like still firmly believes in everything that the collective believes in, but is definitely more of like a lone wolf on that side of things. I think definitely like thinks critically about werewolves and the different packs that are there, and kind of just knows to question everything and forms their own beliefs. I just absolutely love their fashion. I had so much fun making over Wolfgang because I feel like I just had such a clear vision of like the outfits that I knew that they were gonna wear, which goes for a lot of the werewolves. I guess that's why we say werewolves, because they are wearing their personalities in their outfits. I don't know about you, but I feel like Seline gets done dirty by this community. Yes, she has a wide head, okay? Wider than a lot of Sims within this game, but even though this was a tiny makeover and I really could have made her look like however I wanted to, I think she's super cute and I actually really, really like that. I haven't tried playing with her genetics, and realistically, I do think that is the only time where like kind of extending the sliders, even though this is achievable within the game without like custom sliders, I do think that's where it has a knock-on effect, because sometimes like your kids' heads can just get like wider and wider and wider. But I haven't played around with that, you know. Her and Lou are not an item for a reason, but hands down, genuinely, I think like some of the most fun outfits, like I feel with Seline, because she's kind of a bartender as well, I feel like she has such like an out there personality, and she kind of just like rocks whatever she wears, that I could realistically just have fun with her. She kind of has more of like a country element to her, but then also this like rocker. I think the like yellow leggings, I personally don't think any other sim in this game could get away with wearing the outfits that she does, and she slays every single one of them. I know so many of you are about to be happy with this one, but little Lou, aka Justin Bieber. I know, I'm sorry, I might have just ruined Lou Howell for you, but take that long hair off Lou, put like a sweepy fringe on, or you know, even the like big quiff Bieber, and he looks exactly like Justin Bieber. Of course, I wanted to do Lou justice. I think he's so much fun. I wanted to make him like pretty stylish, but also, you know, he is definitely this like very, very young werewolf who has only just like got into this, and definitely doesn't have like a lot of clothes to his name. He still tries to get his like personal style out there, and I think he does it in a way where you can definitely tell he's a little bit of a rocker. I can see him absolutely being in a band if bands were a thing in this game. Lou, I imagine, would be like the Dougie Pointer of a band. Also still has his little like cowboy hat on from when he was maybe in a relationship with Seline. So, you know, he's a caring boy. Underneath it all, I think Lou is very, very caring. I think he tries to come across as like a heartthrob and like a bad boy, but realistically he's just like so scared of messing life up, and being a werewolf like genuinely terrifies him. Or he could just be a himbo, you know, whichever way you want to flip that coin. Rory, my sweet angel baby, I have a story to tell you about my Rory Oklo. So basically, I made over Rory so long ago. Pretty soon after Werewolves came out, I made over Rory. I did a full 3-hour stream making them over as I usually do. And then I like stopped stream. I exited out of my game and I forgot to save it. I just exited from Creator Sim. I hadn't saved them to my gallery. There was no way of retrieving them whatsoever. All of my hard work after 3 hours just down the drain like that. And I can tell you, one of the best things that ever happened to me, you know, everything is meant to be exactly the way that it is, because tell me why I then decided to get into Arcane, and then I watched the second season of Arcane, and I witnessed with my own eyes Pit Fighter Vi. And I knew in that moment, that's exactly who I needed to make Rory Oklo. So Rory is heavily inspired by Vi, specifically like Pit Fighter Vi, but definitely just has like big Vi vibes, like even down to the personality, like definitely is a troubled kid, I guess, like definitely didn't agree with their dad when they were growing up, and hence why they left the collective and started their own wolf pack, and kind of just wants to take in like other werewolves or other people who are struggling, and wants to be like a protector in the way that they kind of felt that Christopher never really protected them. And I absolutely love them so much. That is my baby, and I'm real proud. Amy Prescott is actually the kid that I made over in that video whilst I was getting ready for Growing Together to release, and she was really fun because I feel like a lot of the kids within my townie makeovers, they wear like an awful lot of colors. They are basically just like kids being kids, whereas I feel like she's kind of an old soul. She definitely knew who she was from an early age, and she's more of like the rebellious kid out of the Prescotts, which I think is so fun. It says in like the family bio that Molly has been inspired to be a little bit more rebellious because of her little sister, so I definitely wanted to show off that kind of rebelliousness in her clothing. You know, she definitely doesn't really let her mum decide what she's gonna wear, and so with that I decided to take the influence of her and inject it into Molly Prescott. I did not mean to make her look like Renee Rapp, but she looks exactly like Renee Rapp. So for a lot of like her first outfits, I decided to tell the story of obviously being this little like do-gooder. She is a pathological people pleaser. Her mum is the head teacher and is very strict. Molly is on like a lot of extracurricular activities. She's just trying to live like how her mum wants her to live, but then on a lot of her second outfits, they're like slightly a little bit more risque. They're basically just a little bit more rebellious. You know, she's playing around with who she actually is. She wants to be a musical genius, which I honestly didn't even know that. I had no idea that Molly was like invested in music, so I can kind of imagine her like sneaking off to go to concerts and like DJing, and I think that's really really sick. And I just love the storytelling that sometimes you can get in Sims outfits, and Molly is like the pinnacle of that in my save file. This whole like goody two shoes thing on the outside and how she presents in her first outfit, and then also being way more true to herself on the second outfit. I just imagine her sneaking out, getting changed with like her clothes in a duffel bag, like sneaking over to Sydney's house and getting changed over there. You all know Ash Hajjo. I feel like it's hard not to know Ash. Ash is such an iconic sim when it comes to high school years. I absolutely freaking love her. Obviously, they are the mega style influencer, goes to Thrifty literally like every day after school, and I really just wanted to show off the fashionista when it came to Ash Hajjo. It's also really cute. This is why I mentioned like in the beginning, like playing around with kind of family dynamics and kind of the interactions that they've shared with each other and kind of how they inspire each other. So Ash actually inspires her dad Lucha And I feel like Luca, I always want to say Lucia because I have a friend who is Italian. So that's the sound that I am used to. So apologies if that is correct for this name specifically. I've actually made him with a custom aspiration, which is actually like a famous pastry chef. That's not obviously available within the game, though I wish it were, considering we have baking, but we just don't have like an aspiration that lines up with baking. And funny story, whilst I was actually making over the mum, I decided that she looked like Linda Belcher. I basically, the whole time that I was making her, just kept reciting "Lil Baby." And so I also decided to make Lucia Bob. So they are pretty much Bob and Linda. That was my inspiration behind the two of these. But Lucia has kind of the typical dad style that I will hold my hands up and say, given like this style to a lot of the fathers within the game, just like, you know, middle, late age man. And I think he looks really, really cute. I really like his fits, but Ash has definitely inspired him and definitely has picked out a fair few of his outfits. Ash basically treats her dad as if he is on Queer Eye and is just like, let me do this, let me change this about you, and let's go shopping and buy this. This will look really good where it sits on your hips, which is honestly something that I want to do with my own father. So maybe I am actually just projecting. And then finally, we have Noah. Now, in the High School Years trailer, Noah is a jock and is kind of the jock that Sydney has a little bit of a crush on, like, or maybe he has a crush on Sydney and then Sydney has a crush on someone else. There's definitely, I think, a little like thing between Noah and Sydney. I don't think I've imagined that or like made that up from thin air. Maybe I have, and if I have, I like it anyway, but I'm fairly sure they have some form of like a flirtationship going on in some way. He is still a jock, but I've definitely leaned him over more so as well to being kind of the class clown. So very, very, actually both of these kids extremely extroverted, which is wild to say when it comes to siblings in my townie makeovers. Noah kind of puts on a front a little bit and like tries to be funny because he is coming to terms with the fact that he's gay and he does have feelings for Sydney, and he definitely doesn't think that he's like good enough for Sydney. So he gets out a lot of his insecurities by being like loud in class and making people laugh, and that's kind of just how he rolls with it and deals with like his feelings. I love Noah. He was one of the Sims that I was really, really struggling with in my townie makeovers, and then I'm fairly sure I made him off screen and something just clicked, because sometimes I feel like when you're doing it on stream you can definitely feel the pressure a bit. Definitely one of the biggest households that I think we actually have in the game, like from all the official families. I'm not sure if they are in fact like the largest family we have, but definitely up there with 6 Sims. Janae Price, the woman that you are, sometimes you just like throw a hairstyle on a Sim and you're like, yes, you are exactly who I imagined you to be. Janae again definitely has that kind of professional air about her. I don't know if I ever came up with like a headcanon for a job, but I can kind of see her as the new Enchanted by Nature career. Not the actual like healer, like nature element of it, but more the sports, like science side of it, because I feel like that is the other option. And I can definitely see her being like a sports therapist or something, hence probably why Sydney has like fallen into sports and cheerleading. I feel for sure Jenna was head cheerleader. He definitely takes after his mother. And then Marcel, definitely a teacher, 100%. Do you see this man's fit? I had so much fun with his outfits. I can kind of see him being a music teacher. I know, he kind of gives me, I can't even remember his name, Matthew Morrison? Sorry, trigger warning for Matthew Morrison mention, but Mr. Shoe vibes, but only on the music side of things, okay? Absolutely nothing else. Marcel is actually a sweetheart, and I feel bad even just comparing him to Mr. Shoe. I'm sorry, you are so much better. But I really wanted him to have like a lot of bold colors and bold patterns specifically. That little waistcoat that he wears on either his everyday wear or his formal wear. I always forget that that's like an option that we have within this game, and I love that I decided to go for like really bold patterns and really just have like so much fun throwing on like a ton of different colors, because I knew that I wanted him to be bold and like stand out in the classroom, and honestly just like use colors to kind of keep the kids' attention in the classroom. Then we have little Jaden, the youngest of this household, who is really just like the coolest dude. He's pretty much just into everything that his family is into. So he really enjoys sports, obviously from his mum and Sydney. He thinks it's so cool that Sydney is like head cheerleader in school, goes to literally all of the matches to go and support Sydney, and then is also super into like the creative side of things, drawing because of his sister, and he's really just like a sponge. Video games as well because of Kevin. He's just obsessed with being like the youngest in the family. His hot weather outfit with the little bee on, fun fact, the Sims team have weirdly, I feel, been like watching my videos, or I've just like had the same like ideas as the Sims team, because it felt like every so often I would just get a pack that I had played in like my previous Let's Play. So in Growing Together, I actually had the father of that Let's Play go through a midlife crisis, and then lo and behold, we got midlife crisis, and that was, oh no, it was my high school years Let's Play, and then that came in Growing Together. So weird. Then there was another time that happened, and it just felt like everything that I was doing was also then officially coming. Anyway, enough of that. I don't even know why I started talking about that. I just got distracted. I didn't even talk about Savannah, which, to be fair, I haven't finished her outfit, so it wasn't very long to talk about her. But Savannah, I can definitely see her being like an illustrator or something. I literally say it all the time, but I really wish that you could do like illustration as a career in The Sims 4. I find it so weird that I know we have the like digitalistic sketchpad, and I think the closest that we kind of have to it, obviously you can be a freelance artist and using the tablet, or you could be a tattoo artist, but I really just wish that you could be an illustrator. Then of course we have Sydney, definitely, like I said, inspired by his mum to get into sports, but also very much inspired by his dad when it comes to his like very bold fashion. I imagine is really good friends with Ash, has the fashion side like influence from her. That's what I was talking about, the bees. So really weirdly, I came up with the headcanon that Sydney had been to a summer camp when he was younger, and that's why he's wearing like the bee t-shirt, and that's like his vintage like camp shirt. But then his brother now goes to that summer camp, and Sydney works there, so he helps to like look after his brother and the other kids. And then of course we just got Adventure Awaits that actually full on has a kids camp. So I can actually send these two. I can actually have them wearing like either the scout clothes, or I could now have them wearing the official camp stuff, which I just think is really cute, especially for high school years. I imagine it's again like another thing to add to like college applications, and I definitely feel like Sydney is an overachiever and definitely wants to get a scholarship for cheerleading, also just like wants to get really good grades. Just all round kind of like head honcho in school. And then of course we have Kevin. I imagine Kevin being like a famous video game streamer or like a developer, a programmer for sure. Eventually he'd move to like San Myshuno and like find his people in San Myshuno. Probably honestly move in with Sydney. To me, he kind of has underdog vibes, but I just wanted to make him a little bit more stylish. I feel like honestly Kevin was done a little bit dirty when it came to the clothes that they put him in. So he's still like very cool, and I think he's just like growing in confidence. And I think being friends with Sydney me, and probably Ash is definitely helping with that. Moving on to growing together, of course, another family-based pack. I feel like Copperdale and then also San Sequoia very much have like the same kind of energy to me, especially when it comes to the families in these worlds. So first off, we have Jay. I just wanted to give Jay a glow up. I'm so sorry, but I feel like Jay deserved so much better than what they initially got. I did keep the Squid Games tracksuit on them, and then they also spawned in. Sometimes I go back when I'm making these videos and I'm just like, what was I thinking? And then I remember that I was streaming at the time, but I'm fairly sure Jay had that like top on, just like randomized in their athletic wear, and chat were like, you have to keep it. So I think we decided that Jay was a climber, so did a lot of like rock climbing at the gym, which definitely feels like a very gay activity. So it definitely made sense, but seeing it in this video, I was like, what was I thinking? Why do I let chat bully me into these things? And then obviously we have their wife, Dolly, who is a photographer. So I played very, very closely with this family in my Growing Together Let's Play. And I just knew that I wanted to make Dolly like this stylist slash photographer. And she's so freaking cool. She has like such an edge to her. Even though she wears like a lot of black, I feel like I haven't gone like as goth as sometimes I do when I'm using like this kind of styling for townie makeovers. She's just very, very cool. She plays around with like textures a lot. Obviously got the beret. I'm fairly sure I deleted some like custom content, and that's why like some of her outfits are like unfinished, but I just know that their toddler is gonna grow up to be like the coolest kid, because how can you not be cool when you have those two as your parents? I don't know why, but when I was making Ian, I got really inspired. So remember when scenarios were a thing in The Sims 4? I actually redid some of the characters that were included, specifically in the inheritance one, and one of them really, really looked like Ian, and I really just enjoyed the way that he looked. He kind of reminded me of, you know, the Al's Toy Barn character, like Al in Toy Story 2, and I was like, I kind of want to like recreate a townie who actually like looks like him, and that is where Ian came into it. I don't know why, but so many of these men are like programmers or something in my mind. Actually, I can also see him being like a librarian or something like that, or a professor. No, actually, the professor goes to Jeffrey Landgrab. Jeffrey Landgrab is the only professor in my whole townie save file. And then, of course, there is also his child, Aurelio, who I still need to finish. I've barely done any of Aurelio's outfits, but I knew that I wanted Aurelio to be a little like singer. I feel like definitely musically inclined. Obviously, already has like the aspiration to be a musical genius, but I can definitely see them like wanting to be like a pop singer, which I think is really, really cool. And I definitely wanted them to be like very fashion forward with that, which makes me laugh because literally their second outfit looks like a Sarja Boys outfit. And I made this sim over way before K-pop Demon Hunters came out. The Michaelsons are hands down one of my favorite families that have ever been shipped in The Sims 4. If these were like a base game household, like if I had as much time to love them as I do like the goths or the pancakes, they would be like absolutely up there, like top tier. I actually should do a tier ranking of townies, and I mean like the families rather than the individual townies. If you would like to see that video, let me know. But I absolutely love Celeste and Christopher. To me, they're just like the epitome of this like very young, very devoted family, like absolutely obsessed with their kids. But there is a little bit of an age gap between their eldest and then obviously Orion, and I think that they just like savor every single moment of being like a young family. I feel like they just go out and like do activities all of the time, whether it's like going to do archery, going to stay at like a camp together, going out to like roller discos or bowling or this or that. They just fully make the most of being a young couple who are not only like obsessed with each other and like so in love, but just want to pour that love into their children as well. And I feel like Atlas and Orion are the two like luckiest children in the entire world. So I really just wanted to make them like very modern, very homey. I feel like they both have such like cool styles. They're both gamers, they're both programmers and developers, and I just think that's such like a sick setup. Like imagine loving your partner so much that you're like, yeah, we do like the same job as each other, like we probably both work from home, and then guess what, we like spend the evening with our children, and then once they're in bed we also just like are still obsessed with each other and play games together and like have a his and hers office, which is really cool. They are also a T for T couple. Yes, the T for T representation is here in my townie makeover of the Michaelsons, and I bloody love that for both of them. And then of course you've got Atlas, who is pretty much again just like anything that takes his fancy. His parents are like, yeah, like we'll buy you a telescope. Oh, you're into space right now? Yeah, we'll go on holiday to Batu. Oh, you're into this now? Absolutely, we'll pay for acting lessons. Like they really just want to like make the most of their life together, and I absolutely bloody love them. And finally we have the Sullivan household. I actually haven't worked on the mum of this household, but I have made over Eleanor. She definitely has the energy of like a Jacqueline Wilson type, or also the lady from that Sex Rooms TV show that was on Netflix. I feel like Eloise Hiddlesticks has the energy of her, and also so does Eleanor. I forgot to include Eloise in this video. Oh my god, I just remembered that she was part of High School Years. Wait, I need to go back and add her in. And then obviously we have her granddaughter Carmine, and Carmine, I mean, she is an icon. I absolutely love that she is probably friends with like so many of her grandma's friends. Goes off to like the community center. She goes to play bingo with the girlies. She loves doing like puzzles and crosswords and stuff with like everyone in her like elder community center, and Carmine just hustles every single one of them. Like she will sit and play cards with them, and like all the grandpas will be out here teaching her how to like hustle the game. I just love the fact that she has like so many grandparents. Technically, they always say it takes a village, and Carmine definitely has a village behind her. I'm just gonna throw Eloise in at the end here. I already said she reminds me of that woman from like the sex room dungeon thing on Netflix, the owner of the bubble tea cafe, the vintage shop. So very much wanted to show off like her being interested in vintage wear. I freaking love her outfits. I use Eloise in my all collections challenge, so I feel like we got to know each other very well. We are extremely close, and she was another sim that, especially with like her retro style, I think like throwing very bold patterns and also very bold colors. Like the lime green jacket is an absolute serve, and I used so much like actual content that is within the game that probably a lot of people don't even know about because they never really use like those statement pieces, but I feel like Eloise brings it together very well. And there we go. That is all of my townie makeovers for this particular video. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry, I do feel like I yapped an awful lot. I haven't made one of these in a hot minute. I think the last one I made was like June potentially, so it's been a while since I've like actually spoken about my townie makeovers, so I might be slightly out of practice. And also the next one might not be happening thing, at least for a little while, because I basically have a back order of townies. I have a big backlog. I'm facing the difficulty of like fairies changing their whole genetics, which is really annoying when you hop into Create a Sim when you're trying to do townie makeovers. So the last one could potentially take a little bit to reach you all, but I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you were maybe inspired by some of these. Let me know who were a couple of your favorites from this one, and I will speak to you all in my next video. Bye now.